All right, Joe. Good morning. How are you? It took us a few a few minutes for some guys who aren't maybe the best technologically to get our act together, but really appreciate you coming on this morning. This is being viewed by what seems to be a couple of hundred plus that asked to participate in the broadcast, and obviously, we know you've got mountains of things underway as Chief Distribution Officer, the President of TDC with Transat. Very, very busy time for you, obviously. So really appreciate taking the time to have a chat with us this morning and communicate in this sort of forum with the travel industry. So thank you. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning, John. I'm well, thank you, and good morning to the hundreds of travel professionals taking time out of their busy day to listen in on our chat. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad you could join us, and thank you. It's one of a series that we're doing with your peers throughout the week, so it's pretty exciting. So I think one of the things that I wanted to ask you, we've got a couple of questions that were submitted by agents as well, so we can get to them in advance of this. But what I wanted to ask you is that within Transat, for a business that's been entrenched in the Canadian culture for decades, very, very tough time. There's people that have been probably working together for over 30 years within the organization, right?
Correct.
And to go through this unprecedented crisis that we're going through, to have to make these tough decisions at the executive level with the layoffs and the furloughs that were announced recently, because it really is like a friends and relatives working within that group. There's a Transat Strong hashtag that's being published now on LinkedIn and different things. So what's it like emotionally in there for everybody? Because it's tough and it's financially necessary, but still at a human level and at a personal level, it's really tough. So what's it like within the organization?
Yeah, so Transat has always risen up to meet the challenges of crises in the past. I've been around 9 years. I've seen it over my 9 years, and it's part of our DNA, part of our culture, that we always step up. We always step up. So that's something that is there for sure and holds us in good stead during these tough times. But as you point out, we have very much a family, almost entrepreneurial feel, even these 32 years later as a company. So for sure, very, very difficult times. It's with a very heavy heart that we had to proceed to temporary layoffs of the majority of our staff, flight attendants, pilots, call center staff, and so on. We remain operational, but it is with a very heavy heart that we make these decisions. But we're comforted in the fact that these are, while unpleasant, these are absolutely necessary and they are the right thing to do. Yeah. And what gives us strength as well is that our employees are amazing throughout all this. Their professionalism, their understanding, their desire that the few who remain to hold down the fort, that we all succeed for the greater good, which is to have the Transat star shine brightly well into the future. And very, very touching, John.
Yeah.
Numerous employees have actually said, I completely understand what is happening here. I'm pulling for us. If you need me, I am there for you.
Wow.
Even when I am home on temporary layoff. So very, very touching. The commitment to the cause, to the brand, it is extremely touching. So while difficult, our staff has actually made it a lot more bearable.
Yeah, tough times for sure. That's remarkable. If you've got people that are still willing to work, shows the commitment for the brand, for sure. Well, we feel for you. You know, it's and everybody's going through the same thing. So,
Of course.
and it's across all industries too. It's just remarkable. We I don't know if you saw or not. We had a series of comments and posts that we had on a Facebook interview or not interview, commentary or op-ed almost that I did. Really trying to just provide some clarity to agents and to consumers, trying to identify the force majeure, the likelihood or unlikelihood of being successful from a chargeback perspective, from a force majeure. Really, it was trying just to shine a light on the fact that there's a contract in place with suppliers that have a force majeure clause, and that's binding. But for the most part, it seems. It's binding between the customer and the supplier. And we want to just bring that to everybody's attention to make sure you read that before you go down the path of doing a chargeback. Nothing preventing anybody from endeavoring to try and do a chargeback. But it met with like a fury of comments, like something I've never seen before. It was insane, and really taking a shot at us, calling agents traitors, and it was just crazy, some of the comments that were on there. And you know what, we kept all those comments up and we engaged this audience because we think it's the right thing to do, to have an open discussion about it. So that's why we've done that, and I hope those that are commenting on there understand that and appreciate it. But can you provide us with a level of clarity as it relates to the Transat position on future travel vouchers and on the ability for clients to do a chargeback, and couple that with the terms and conditions and the force majeure that exists within your contract? So it'd be really helpful if you can speak to that to as much as you can, given obviously the legal issues that may surround it. So just walk us through that and give us an oversight or some overview on your perspective.
I'd be glad to, John. And first off, I commend you for tackling a potentially thorny topic. I saw you did that last week, and I listened in on the video. I commend you and Travel Pulse for doing that.
Thank you.
You know, force majeure is it's in most contracts, and it's something that is luckily very infrequently cited or used,
if at all.
If at all, yeah, in commercial relationships. Our contention is the following: that given what has happened, this constitutes a force majeure. That is, whereby the standard terms and conditions of the transaction are set aside. We opted to provide a 24-month future travel voucher or credit in lieu of a full refund, given the unprecedented nature of what has happened, how quickly it's happened, the severity of what's happened, and the catastrophic consequences of having to refund everyone. It really is a domino effect, because if we as an airline, as a tour operator, are compelled or obliged to refund, it puts us as suppliers at risk. It puts retailers at risk, because as we refund, commissions are necessarily clawed back or withheld. The catastrophic consequences of that happening for our industry, John, would also be unprecedented. Mm-hmm. So in our view, having the 24-month credit in lieu of a refund is fair and reasonable and warranted given these exceptional circumstances. We're comforted by the fact that no less than the Canadian Transportation Commission has essentially agreed with this in saying that this is a reasonable alternative to the full refund. This is why we did what we did. This is why we are holding the line. It is for, yes, the good of Transat, but the good of the industry as a whole. Mm-hmm. And as regards chargebacks, so where we are merchant of record, and we are merchant of record on almost all transactions, certainly within the Canadian marketplace, Um, the consumer can, per the terms of his agreement with his credit card issuer, can claim a chargeback, which is to say, I did not get goods or services, therefore refund me the money. So it is our intention to vigorously dispute these chargebacks, and our burden is to demonstrate that we have given goods or service or a future travel credit or voucher.
Yeah.
And to the extent that we will be successful in disputing those chargebacks, we will help protect our retail partners.
Yeah.
Because if we have money in the bank, commissions stay where they are with our retail partners. We are lobbying financial institutions, credit card processors, credit card issuers, banks, and multiple levels of government to get them to support our industry in staving off these chargebacks, which in our view, are not warranted given the exceptional circumstances.
Because you're relying on the force majeure clause and the unprecedented circumstances, presumably that's what you're relying upon, right?
That is correct. And again, the precedents are numerous in other jurisdictions. We spoke of the Canadian Transport Commission, but jurisdictions in Europe are increasingly aligning with this view. Because this truly is a global, a global challenge. It's a global challenge. And we're doing our best here in Canada to get through it.
Yeah.
To get through it.
I just took delivery of a new vehicle that I couldn't get out of, and there's nothing I can do about it. I had to do a cancellation for a product as well that we were going to be doing in the early summer with my family, so I've had to cancel that. And the bank, the credit card company basically said, the bank said, you can try, but if you've got something there that's going to be relied upon from your provider, then it's not going to happen. It was TD Visa. So I appreciate that point of clarity. We're going to be asking your peers as well the same question throughout the course of the week. A couple of questions from agents. One, this is not surprising because it's probably on the top of mind of everybody, so we're just asking outright. They're just wondering about any aged commissions or outstanding commissions that they have in their accounts receivables, if that's going to be forthcoming, and is there an expected date that things might ramp up in terms of those payments? Doesn't define. It was from Anne, an agent in Ontario. So.
Good morning, Anne. So most of our commissions are up to date. With the flurry of changes that were put through when we introduced flexibility, and then with the subsequent cancellations that were introduced effective last week, and the gradual suspension of our operations, it's made things complicated on some files. But where files are clean and not impacted, we are either paid up or will pay up no later than the original travel date. So nothing is being withheld there. Where files have had to have been postponed, altered, modified, pick the verb you want. We just need to get into each of those files, make sure the numbers all add up, and as that happens, the commissions are released. It's all tied again to the original travel date. Even if that original travel date is postponed and unknown because it's pushed off into the future, we will pay no later than that original travel date. All of that is being worked out.
Okay.
The money will stay with we will pay on the basis of that original travel date, and the monies will be held with us for the future travel credit. The commissions are with the original booking agent, and then sometime in the future, the customer will make use of the credit and actually travel. So there is, I'd say it's business as usual, with an additional volume of having had to modify, alter some of the bookings, but all of that is being worked through
Okay.
And we don't expect any undue delays.
Okay. Thank you, Anne, for that question. Next question from Jillian was just your thoughts on forecasting or what sales will look like in 2021 versus prior year, prior to obviously the event. So I think what she was asking is, where do you see sales year over year as a comparison prior to the COVID crisis in 2020?
Yeah, so that is sure. I'll speak more near term than in 2021. I think obviously anyone's guess is as good as mine, I guess. What I see is when we resume operating, I think there will be a gradual resumption of operations. So whenever that is, I think, when we start flying again, I don't think it would be at the full planned capacity deployment that had been contemplated. So I think there will be a few months of a gradual resumption of operation. But to Jillian's specific question, come 2021, I think we should have healthy demand back in 2021. But really time will tell. It's all a matter of how soon we can get this behind us, and how soon normalcy or a new sense of normalcy will set in, which I hope to be in the coming months.
Yeah. I think that that's a segue into my next question for you, which is, what do you think? Because we've been talking about this as a family, and just within the industry, people have been talking to you. What do you think will be irreparably changed moving forward when we come out of this? What is the thing culturally and with society within our industry as a community that will have changed forever and never be the same again? Whether it be cleanliness on board the aircraft, or force majeure clauses. What do you think will? And it doesn't have to be one thing, but just something that you think may very likely end up being changed and remain the same forever.
I think a few things come to mind, John. Certainly, I think the next time there is mention of a virus of some sort. So this isn't the first virus, right?
Yeah.
That we've dealt with as an industry, as a society. I mean, H1N1, the Zika virus. Of course, SARS was a very big deal in Canada. Some almost 2 decades ago now. So we've had these issues in the past. I think the next time something flares up, I think that reaction will be a lot different than it was in the past. And I anticipate a bit of an over-the-top reaction. Perfectly normal, but over the top nevertheless. And then I think, then the subsequent virus, because these things they're not going away. I think that second one, there will be, I think, less of an over-the-top reaction, and I guess at some point a new normal sets in, just as it did, post 9/11. I mean, there have been terrorist attacks since. And the industry has always been consumers, because at the end of the day, it's not just the industry; it's the traveler who's resilient, and it's worked out. But this one does feel different because the perceived danger is not just at destination; it's here in our home country. It's potentially anything within where proximity is an issue. So I think those things will irrevocably change, but we will work our way through. On the flip side, I think there's a lot, certainly in the early days, I think we will take a lot less for granted. I'll speak for myself. there are people I miss terribly today. And FaceTime is great, and Zooming is great, and Skype is great. But there are loved ones that I can barely keep in touch with, and I know I will personally try to do better by them once the restrictions are lifted.
Yeah. It is remarkable. In fact, one of my peers, one of our competitors, Nina with OpenJaw, I believe, is contracted the virus. So we're sending out love to her, make sure she can recover at a good pace as well. So.
I hadn't heard. I wish Nina the best, of course. I hadn't heard.
So, lastly, just any message or anything you want to send out to all the agents that are watching, and this will be recorded and it will be published on our Facebook page as well. And then Joe, we're gonna do one of these en français, pourvu avec la cliente à Québec. C'est mon français, c'est fini for now. It's my best. My accent is good. The vocabulary, not so much. But we intend on doing that so we can publish this in Quebec too. But any message to agents specifically?
Sure. Two things I want to leave you with. One is, despite everything that is going on, that has gone on, Transat stands behind you, stands side by side with you, and hand in hand, we will get through this. We will get through this, and we will never let the agent community down. The second point is, as difficult as these days are, I take solace in knowing that with each day, we are one step closer to a resumption of a better, more normal existence. I don't know how far that is, but I know that with each day, we're one day closer. So I hope it is in the very near future. I hope we can speak of weeks, perhaps a couple of months, but hopefully not longer. So I do hang on to that. I do hang on to that we are one day closer to resuming our lives.
Yeah. I've just realized as I moved in closer, I'm going to have to get somebody to put some makeup on me because this does not look good in my home studio. I don't have hair and makeup. Joe Adamo, Chief Distribution Officer, President of Transat Distribution, thank you very much for your time, taking it out because I know you're busy as all get out. So thanks very much for spending the time with us. For all the viewers, thanks very much for tuning in and watching. Tomorrow we have Andrew Dawson, who's a President and Chief Operating Officer for Sunwing on as well, and he'll give us his perspective and some perspective from that group. So thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. Joe, thank you very much, and keep well, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
See you later. Bye-bye. Thanks. And now I'm going to slide my finger in over here and push finish. See you later.